Ask Mindful M Summer Spoken Word Series, Episode 8 Give Yourself Some Grace. Exploring Won't You Celebrate With Me by Lucille Clifton through the lens of marriage and family therapy. Hello, welcome back to Ask Mindful M. I'm your host, Mary O, Associate Licensed Marriage and Family Therapist. And this summer, we have been using poetry as a doorway into our stories, our relationships, our families, and the ways we learn to see ourselves. So last week, y'all, we talked about hope, about climbing, about how sometimes our hope becomes stronger and how sometimes our hope becomes stronger when we don't climb alone. But today, I want us to pause. Not climb, not fix, not achieve, just be. Pause. Because sometimes we are so focused on becoming, doing the thing, right, that we forget to acknowledge who we have already become and appreciate that for what that is. Today's featured poet is Lucille Clifton, and her poem, Won't You Celebrate With Me, offers us an invitation that can feel surprisingly difficult. Celebrate yourself. Not because everything went perfectly, but because you made it here to that moment, to this moment, past that rough moment that you just knew was feel like it was never ending. So here we go. Won't you celebrate with me what I have shaped into a kind of life? I had no model. Born in Babylon, both non-white and woman, what did I see to be except myself? I made it up here on this bridge between starshine and clay, my one hand holding tight my other hand. Come celebrate with me that every day something has tried to kill me and has failed. So, Clifton's poem reflects on a life that wasn't handed to her fully formed, a self that had to be created, a life that had to be navigated, a person who had to become, despite circumstances that could have told her otherwise. And that distinction matters because sometimes we tell ourselves, I'll celebrate when I get there, when I achieve this, when I reach this benchmark, in this place, in that place. When the degree is finished, when the career is established, when the relationship is better, when the family is healed, when the goal is reached, when I finally become the version of myself I've been working toward, then I'll celebrate. But what if celebration isn't reserved for the finish line? Or also think of it this way, there is more than one finish line. Think of checkpoints, right? When you're in a race, I'm a racing gamer, right? All those checkpoints matter. Those checkpoints that you get to on the way to the finish line, those absolutely need to be celebrated. Because those checkpoints of celebration can be part of the healing. And so this is where I think marriage and family therapy gives us such a beautiful lens. We don't become ourselves in a vacuum. Our understanding of ourselves is shaped through relationships, right? Family messages, cultural expectations, attachment experiences, the stories we've heard about who we are supposed to be, and sometimes the stories we've inherited about who we're not allowed to become. Some of us learn to measure our worth by achievement. Guilty. I'm a very achievement-oriented person. I have been in my life, right? Nothing wrong with that. It's just understanding that that's not a definition of you, more so as a part of your story, right? Some learned that being needed was the same thing as being loved. Some learned to minimize their accomplishments because standing out felt unsafe. And some of us simply never learned how to celebrate ourselves. We learn to survive, but not necessarily how to honor the person who survived. So here's my clinical pearl, if you will. Self-compassion is not self-indulgence. And celebrating yourself doesn't mean ignoring the work you still have to do. It means being able to hold two truths are true at the same time. I still have room to grow, and I am already worthy of recognizing how far I've come. Those truths can and do coexist, okay? In fact, healthy growth often requires them to. You must celebrate along your achievements journey. So I want you to pause with me for a moment and think about something you've made it through that you rarely give yourself credit for. Maybe because nobody else knows how difficult it was. Maybe people only see the outcome and not the process. Maybe you kept showing up while carrying something privately. Maybe you became a version of yourself that your younger self couldn't have imagined. What would happen if instead of immediately moving to the next goal, you stopped long enough to say, I did that? Not perfectly, not without mistakes, but simply, I did that. And perhaps this is where grace enters the conversation. I'm a big fan of grace. Grace allows us to look at our past selves with more compassion than criticism. The person you were 5 years ago may have made choices you would not make today. The version of you from last year may have had boundaries you no longer need. The younger you may have accepted things that today's you would never tolerate. But that doesn't mean you have to hate who you were to honor who you're becoming. Sometimes healing means looking backwards and saying, you did the best you could with what you knew. And then turning toward the present and saying, now I know more, I'm going to do more, I'm going to do better. Lucille Clifton's work invites us to recognize something powerful. Our lives are worthy of celebration, not because they're perfect, but because they are ours. The story doesn't have to be flawless to be meaningful. The journey doesn't have to be finished to be worthy of honor. And you don't have to become someone else before you're allowed to celebrate who you are. Let me run that back. Appreciate your versions of self, right? And you can have been those people and still celebrate your version today. So this week, celebrate something, not necessarily performatively, not for likes, not for applause, just for you. This could be a boundary you finally set, a conversation you finally had, a dream you returned to, a version of yourself you finally released, a part of yourself you finally accepted, or simply the fact that you're still here, existing, being, affecting those around you. I'll leave you with this question. What part of your story deserves more celebration and less criticism? Thank you for spending these mindful moments with me. And if today's reflection gave you permission to see yourself with a little more grace, share it with someone who may need that same permission. Until next time, stay mindful. This is Mary O, Associate Licensed Marriage Family Therapist. Y'all take care.